Folks, 60 years ago, President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act that fundamentally changed voting for African Americans, especially in the South. Here is some of what he said on that historic day.
Even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too. Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
That's all right, folks. President Lyndon Baines Johnson, again, with the Voting Rights Act speak. Joining us right now is someone who put his life on the line in order to get that passed. Playing an integral role in getting that signed into law. Of course, former lieutenant of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He also member of Congress, mayor of Atlanta, ambassador to the United Nations. My alpha brother Andrew Young. Ambassador Young, how you doing?
I'm doing fat and middling, as the old folks say.
Well, I was
I
was talking to some. Say it again.
I said I got no complaints. It's just it was nice and cool here yesterday, but it's back to 100 degrees almost today in Atlanta. So it's a hot time in the whole tonight.
So you're saying the temperatures is higher than your age, huh? You're 93 years old. You've seen a lot over these years, and you were right there in the middle of this battle to get the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act made law. What stands out the most for you reflecting 60 years later after the president signed this historic bill?
Well, it's the way that the movement was really a spirit-led movement. That we came back from Martin received the Nobel Prize in Norway, and we came back and stopped by to meet President Johnson, and all he could say was he agreed with everything we wanted and we needed, but he closed every sentence with, "I'm sorry, I just don't have the power." And when we left there, he was suggesting that we just kind of take it easy, and maybe Dr. King, after having been through the Nobel Prize and been bombed and stabbed and everything else, said maybe he might take a few months off. And actually, that's sort of what I was thinking. But as we left the White House, Dr. King said, "No. We're going to have to get the president some power." And, you know, he was even shorter than me. And I said, "You Morehouse man or something else. You ain't got a pot to piss in or window we broke." You know, because the Nobel Peace Prize was $60,000. But Martin decided we should divide it up with all 6 of the civil rights organizations, so we only got $10 apiece, and that was hardly enough to keep SCLC going for a month. But he understood that social change in America is a religious process as well as a political process. And what I didn't count on, and which he didn't know, but he was sort of counting on it, was that Mrs. Amelia Boynton from Selma. Now, he knew Selma, and I knew Selma because our wives came from Marion, Alabama, which is 30 miles away from Selma. So my wife and I had our first date in Selma. and everybody knew Mrs. Boynton. So when she came over to visit with us, she just tore all of the hell that Democrats were putting, black folks putting in Selma. And Martin said, well, we'll be there with you right after Christmas. And then normally is the NAACP celebrates Emancipation Proclamation on the first of the year. And we said, well, we'll come over and we'll use that as an opportunity to break the injunction and start a movement in Selma. And 3 months later, in March, we had that Bloody Sunday, which we were going to march to from Selma to Montgomery because that's where Governor Wallace was. And we got the dates wrong because we said it was really confusing, but the first Sunday was when the preachers had to be in the pulpits, and that was the 7th of March, and so none of the preachers were there, but there were about 300 people that had come from all the counties around, and they brought their knapsacks with their water and their snacks and food, and there were 300 or 400 people there ready to march. And Dr. King said, can't you all hold them up till we get there? And we said no, because it was a time difference between Selma and Atlanta, and they couldn't get there before evening, and we wanted to get the march through. So he said, well, go ahead and march. They're probably just going to turn you around anyway. And so that's what we decided to do. We didn't want everybody to go to jail because we thought everybody, and so John, Hosea Williams, James Bevel, and I all played odd man, flipped a coin. And it turned out to be John Lewis and Hosea Williams that led the line. And we thought they were going to just turn them around and let it go, but they were waiting on horseback. And they rode the horses into the crowd of nonviolent movement people who weren't even budging. They made no move. They were standing still, and the policemen, state troopers, drove the horses right at them and were beating everybody down with billy clubs. And that was a bloody Sunday. And it was bloody. But we recovered and were ready. There was a young white man killed after the march was over. He was in a black neighborhood, James Reeb.
Yeah, James Reeb, yeah.
Yeah, Reeb. And he was an Episcopal priest, I think. And
yeah,
people jumped him coming out of a restaurant. And they beat him by himself. And we got him to the hospital, but it was too late. There were no hospitals around there that were open. You had to drive almost all the way to Birmingham, which was 90 miles.
Let me ask you this question. When it passes, we see massive black turnout. Bull Connor gone, Jim Clark gone, all these folks gone, and we see what happened, and now we're seeing the attacks. Now we're seeing the legal battles. Now we saw, of course, the Shelby v. Holder decision. We see right now Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act hanging by a thread. Clarence Thomas has made it clear that his mission in life is to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. When you see these attacks and how the right wants to completely eradicate it, that has to make you angry, because we know, and we've already seen the results. If the Voting Rights Act is invalidated, I mean, they are going to wipe out half of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Well, they'll have to fight to do it. And I'm impressed with the way Texas and California and New York are taking up this redistricting. When I first ran for Congress, they redistricted me out of Atlanta. I live in the southwest Atlanta, but they took my house and my neighborhood and put it all the way down in Noonan, Georgia, which is 40 miles away. And of course, I lost that time. But we went back to the courts in the Fifth Circuit down here in Atlanta. We got the lines redrawn, and we had some really good people in the Georgia legislature who were black legislators, and they got into the process. And it's not just a few of us. This is a nationwide struggle. This is a struggle of a people, and we've usually found a way to come up with a miracle. And we certainly saw Lyndon Johnson, because we weren't sure about him. He had a really tough Southern accent from Texas, and we were all having hopes in Kennedy. But when Kennedy was struck down, Lyndon Johnson stepped in and did more and everything that we thought we could get John Kennedy to do. And we're grateful to what Lyndon Johnson did, because he was operating for the nation. But then we've had setbacks all over the nation, north and south. But we haven't stopped yet. And I don't know, I quote Dr. King, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the future, on the throne. But the scaffold sways the future, because behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. And we rely on those maxims and principles to say we're going to stay in this struggle till our last breath. And I mean, I've been out registering voters all over Georgia already, and we're just getting geared up, trying to keep our 2 Senate seats and the Congress, that we can add anybody from Georgia. Now that seems to be difficult.
Ambassador,
never know.
Right. To that point, Bishop William Barber sent something to me a week ago that, when you read this, it sort of is extremely sad, if you will. He said that in the last election in November, some 600,000+ African Americans in North Carolina did not vote. He said, according to data, some 1 million Black Georgians did not vote.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you say to an African American who sits elections out, and what must we say to them to get them to recognize that their vote absolutely does matter?
Well, they can see it in Atlanta. We've had 9 black mayors in a row. I was the second one. Maynard Jackson was first. But we've had 9 in a row, and the city is growing. The schools, we have a Hope Scholarship where anybody that makes a B average on the SAT I mean, be average, and 1,000 or 1,200 on the SAT can go to any Georgia college free. We have is 60% of the Atlanta population of our workforce has had some college training, and 23% of that has master's degrees. And we did that through a segregated school system, and just kept on keeping on. And so the more we make it, the more we make and the more we do, the easier it seems to get, and the more people begin to think that it's automatic. But none of my generation, and then not many of us left, none of us know that we can't take it for granted. When I ran for Congress, it poured down rain all day and all night on election day. And it didn't stop raining until 9 o'clock at night after the polls closed. But we had a 75% of the black voters in Atlanta turned out. And that was the biggest turnout we'd ever had. And that's how I got into Congress. And my staff stayed together and didn't come to Washington with me. They stayed here and elected Maynard Jackson mayor in the next year. And then they came to Washington. And so there's nothing without a struggle. And we struggle too hard that we ought to be free by now.
Well, one of the things that it is a struggle, but one of the things that I was on a panel Saturday in Chicago. Janae Nelson of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was on there as well. And she said a lot of people in this generation said this is the first time that we've had to face this level of attacks on our rights. But Ambassador, I remember something when we were engaged in, I'm here at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. We're in Cleveland. I remember when I was last on the board and we were aggressively going after CNN for no black executives direct reporting to Jeff Zucker. And I remember calling Bernard Shaw, and Bernard Shaw said, Roland, every generation has their moment. He said, it's your turn. And I think that's really the message. We have to understand that, hey, you talked about we should be free by now, but the reality is we're not, which means that this generation, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, we got to be in this fight because at the end of the day, the battle today is for really a future of tomorrow.
That's exactly true. But you have to fight for it today to be around tomorrow, because they're trying to take away the rights we've accumulated already. And they don't make any, they're not ashamed, it seems. They want to reestablish slavery almost.
I wrote my book. Go ahead.
No, I said we're working together pretty well here in Atlanta, but again, we're surrounded by the same people who've been here before. Now, we got together with most of the. I mean, I never got elected with just black votes into the Congress, and nor to as mayor. And it was the black vote in Georgia that gave Jimmy Carter his chance to be president, and also Bill Clinton, and we have turned out politically, and we have made progress. The struggle continues, though. Nobody told us that the way would be.
You made a point. You made a point just moments ago where you said, "Go ahead." You said, "Go finish that thought."
Yeah, I said nobody told us that the way would be easy, but I don't believe he brought us this far to leave us. That's I don't feel no ways tired. We've come too far from where we started from.
And you made a point moments ago where you said it seems like they want to take us back to slavery. What I said for months now is that this effort, they want to defund Black America. They want to completely destroy the infrastructure, the civil rights, the economic rights, the social justice, the political infrastructure that folks like you and so many other unsung heroes fought for. That's what they're trying to do right now.
Well, and they're wrong, and they won't be able to do it because this economy is a strong economy in spite of the people that are trying to resegregate it or pick on folk or cut people out or take advantage of people every time they can get. But it's like how could you play in the NFL? How could the NFL have a football team without black folks? I went down in Mobile where there were Mobile's put up statues of Hank Aaron and Satchel Paige and 3 or 4 others. There are 5 black Mobilians that are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they embrace that, and they realize that that's an important part of keeping Mobile, Alabama, the city that it can be. And I don't know. I still go back to I don't feel no ways tired. I'm 93 years old, and I was tired when I came home today because this up and down weather with the heat and cold kind of got to me a little ways. But, I'm here. And I don't feel tired.
Well, what I always say, Ambassador Young, as long as if you got breath in your body and you can still move, there's still some work you to do on our path to freedom.
Well, I kind of feel that way. When in St. Augustine, Florida, which is where we had the last march before they passed the '64 Civil Rights Act, there are 2 young women who brought us down there. And one of them's, they all past 100 now. And they still driving.
Mm-hmm.
We have a number of people, the old civil rights fighters are all, retirement age, but nobody's stopping. And we keep on keeping on, opening doors for the younger generation and doing everything we can to help prepare the way for a brighter tomorrow.
Absolutely. Ambassador Andrew Young, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, my dear brother. Stay well, keep swinging, and I'm right there with you, giving folks hell and speaking truth and what we need in order to be on that path to be free one day.
All right. God bless you. And keep on keeping on.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, sir. Will do. Well, thank you, sir. Tell the wife hello. Folks, that is Ambassador Andrew Young. Let me bring in right now my panelists. Glad to have them here. They've been holding for some time. We had to get with our various guests right there. And let's go right to them. Pull the panelists up, please. Pull them up, pull them up. All right, then, of course. Talik McMillan, glad to have you here on the show. One of our young panelists, young brother who is doing some good work. Glad to have him here. Like I say, folks, we've been, it has been quite the busy day as we here in Cleveland. We see all of the craziness going on. Let me also thank Andrew Clark, who's joined us as well. Managing partner, he is, of course, with the District Legal Group. Glad to have you both. Tyler, I want to start with you. I mean, to sit there and listen to 93-year-old Andrew Young still in the fight, trust me, people talk about my travel schedule. I swear that man travels more than I do, and not giving up. And I think what jumps out there was not losing faith in our ability to fight for freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a joy to be on Roland, but definitely hearing from Ambassador Young, I have had opportunity to sit and talk with him many times, and his wisdom and insight, I think it echoes through generations. And I think today, as we say, we are 60 years removed from the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and yet we are still fighting for these protections. We can't claim to be, the global standard of democracy and these standards of barriers, but yet voter suppression runs rampant right here in our home. I think it's very hypocritical for us as a nation to send diplomats to defend democracy overseas while we are closing polling places, purging voter rolls, and ignoring the erosion of civil rights here in our own country. And I think if democracy abroad is worth fighting for, it must be worth fighting for in Alabama, in Georgia, in Texas, and for the over 400,000 Washingtonians here in D.C. And I think that's what real patriotism means. And I think if we can't defend the basic freedom of protecting the right to vote, what can we protect? All the other, issues are on the line. And it's very important that we stand up and ensure that our rights are being protected.
Andrew, what it also says to anybody who was listening to Ambassador Young, you ain't got no damn excuse sitting your ass on the sidelines. What's happening in Texas, that is not just about right now. That is literally about the next generation of African Americans, the voting rights battle right now. And so when I listen to people talk about, oh, I'm tired, all this, no. Listen, go take a nap. Go get some rest, but this is not a moment for us to be checking out of a process.
Yeah, and it really goes back to the beginning of this administration and the types of tactics that we saw them use in trying to rig elections. We saw them trying to rig judicial elections and influence those elections. Now they're trying to gerrymander out there in Texas. And kudos to all of the representatives in Texas who banded together and who are now safely in the great city of Chicago. Really, it's something that, especially 60 years ago, and the types of things that 60 years ago we saw people have to go through, not me, but at least the previous generation, and we've seen people have to go through. Now we're seeing similar things, and them talking about FBI warrants and arresting them and taking them back, and they're staying put. And I urge all of those representatives that we all support you throughout the country, so to stay strong and to keep doing what you're doing, because it's important, not just for Texas, but for the rest of the country, because if they're allowed to do this in a state like Texas, then all of these red states are going to follow suit. So kudos to them for doing this.
Absolutely. And so, hey, there's a lot of work to do, and people need to understand.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.